There we go. So hi, I'm Linda Majeski, and tonight we are going to learn how to design layered mandalas in Silhouette Studio. It's not a difficult process. It's just a little time consuming. There are a lot of steps to it, but once you're done with it, you have this really cool file and you can cut them out and make cards or do all sorts of, you could frame them. You can do a lot of different things. So, and plus it's a really great way to learn a lot of the tools and things that are in Silhouette Studio. So let me go share my screen in Silhouette Studio. And what I need to do is I have the business edition, which is the highest level that they have. It allows me to do some things that you can't do in the basic edition. Basic is great for starting out, but I would say that if you ever get into this, you definitely want to look at getting the upgraded software. I'm going to go to Pixabay. I love this place. They have really nice stuff and it is free. They do have a way to pay the person who created the photograph or whatever, if you choose to use that. I think for commercial purposes, it would be decent to do that. But if I type in mandala, and I don't need images of them, I need vector graphics. And you see all sorts of beautiful things, some extremely complicated things. But you also see this one, that's the one I'm going to demo with tonight. I thought that looked, it's simple lines, fairly easy to work with. And then this was the one that I got and made for the sample for the class. But yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of different things on here. But that's a great place to get designs from. I'll go back to Silhouette Studio. And so when I open that up, I'm going to move these out of the way. What I get is this. Because I download it as a PNG, when you open it, it's already traced. And it just had a fill color, so I just took the fill color out. I went over to the palette over here and said fill color, that hash mark is none. And this is what we're going to start to work with. Okay, so here's my first design. And as you can see on the instructions, there's those measurements. We're going to use those. That was my favorite to you because I sat down and wrote them all out. Because you can do it, you can eyeball it if you want, but I just found it easier to know that as I go through this, I'm going to do like 1/4 of an inch, then I'm going to do 1/8 of an inch offset, and then or internal offset, 1/16 of an inch, a 32nd. I'm going to check them out as I go along. You can even see on the bottom with the thirds, it goes up to 1/96. Now, depending on the size of your design, that might work, or it might just be nothing at all. And it may be so tiny, it doesn't matter. Okay, I'm going to scoot in here a little bit. All right. So first things first, just going to follow these instructions you see on creating layers. I'm going to click on design. I'm going to right click on it. And I'm going to go down here and I'm going to say release compound path. And what that is going to do is, I said release compound path. Well, oh, I know what it is. I have this. This is, here's one. Here's something for you to learn. I'm like, why isn't that working? Well, if I go up here, this is ungroup, which means these are not currently in a compound path. They're simply grouped. If I click ungroup, you'll see all the pieces. So that's what I need to start to work with. This was apparently the one I was working with before. So if I right click on it and I say make a compound path, what that does is it takes this entire thing and makes it one object. The red marks are the cut lines. So if I went to the send panel and sent it, that's where it would cut. But it keeps it all together in one piece. So now I'm going to release the compound path, and I have all of this. I'm going to click off of this, and I'm going to get that outer layer, I hope, and move it away. I'm going to save that for later. So I'm going to stick it over here. Next thing I'm going to do is select all of these again and make a compound path. Again, it's one object now. I'm going to go over to the right and open the offset panel, which is the little star-shaped icon on the right of the page. I have this selected. I'm going to click on internal offset, and you can see some things already popped up in there. I'm going to adjust the distance. So I'm going to start with 1/4 of an inch, which is 0.25. So I click into the box. You can use the arrows, but I just find it easier to type. And I'm going to click apply. So did it do anything? May not have. I don't know. Let's take a peek. I'm going to undo and undo and undo. No, really didn't do much. So that didn't work. Okay, so I still have it selected. I'm going to go to internal offset 0.125. Okay, I'll start there then, which is 1/8 of an inch. And as you can see, there are things there. There are cut marks there. I'm going to click on apply. Now, I need to take the original object away. And sometimes you'll wind up moving one of this part instead of that part. Let me see if I can make that happen. I'm going to undo that. Right now, those are all connected because they're all the offset. If I can group it, I can do a lot of things with it, but it doesn't matter which one you grab a hold of. Just be careful that you don't, if I unclick that, and then these pieces are all going to move by themselves. So that would be bad. But this is where the undo button is your bestest friend in the whole wide world. And I'm going to, reselect this, and I'm going to try to take the outer, piece off. There we go. So now move offset and original object apart. We're on D, creating layers, step 5, letter D. I'm going to reselect all the parts of the offset. It says left click. That is a mistake. It is a right click. My apologies. I will write myself a note. My other left. And I'm going to make a compound path. And what that does now is this is all in a piece. I don't have to worry about it anymore. One thing I will note, because I made this file and then didn't cut it. I actually cut it today. And what I realized is these little pieces are so tiny, they don't really matter. They don't show up very well. So if before I can release that compound path, I can choose to just remove these, which I would do because like I said, I realized they really don't show much. So that's the kind of thing, if you get some teeny tiny cuts, you can take them out. Come on, you. Or just, the other thing you can do is if you click on one of them and hold down the shift key and click another and click another and click another, and then click all of these. Let's see if I can do that too. Yep. Now I'm going to say delete. I'm going to hit the delete button. It's going to take them all out for me. Here's my other 2 pieces. So I'm going to go back in. Those are all separate. I'm going to right click, make a compound path. So that's my first layer. We'll use that in a little bit. I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to go back to this. And I'm going to start back at, it's under creating layers, step number 5. I'm going to select the object. I'm going to go to internal offset. And now I did 1.25, so I'm going to do a 1/16 of an inch, which is 0.065.
Right.
And then I'm going to say apply. You say, oh my goodness, look at all that. And I'm going to try to pull something apart here. Okay, I got my layers. So if I pull the layers out, those offset layers out, all I need to do is right click on that and make a compound path. And there it is. And I can set that, oh, come here. I can set that one aside. Normally I'd be working with this a little bit smaller, but I wanted to make sure everybody could see it. And I'm going to go back and do that again. Here I'm going to click on my object. I'm going to do an internal offset. The last one I did was 1/16. So I'm going to go to 1/32, which is 0.03125. It probably won't save all of these numbers. So I'll click apply. Oh, it did. And I'm going to pull that apart. There's my cut, my offset. I'm going to right click. I'm going to make a compound path. And I'm good. So how many layers do I have? I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me count what I got here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5. So I've got one more to go. As you can see, as I said, it's repetitive, but that's good in a way because after you've done it a few times, you're like, oh, that's pretty straightforward. So we're going to go all the way up to 1/64 of an inch. I'm going to say internal offset. I come over here and I'm going to type 0.0156. And I'm going to click apply. And as you can see, that is very close. Let's go in here. To what the original cutout was, the original design. So it is a little bit thinner, and I did do this. I can see it from the sample I have. But sometimes you'll get to a point where there's not much difference between the original and what you offset, and that's when you know that's about the end of that one. So let me go back out here, but I am going to use this one. Pull that aside. I'm going to say make a compound path. And there we go. We have all of our layers. 1, come here, 2, 3. Kind of pretty, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's see. 3, 4, and 5. Okay. So there you have that part. Now, we are going on to step 6. You're going to go back to this outermost layer that you took away when you first released the compound path. And we're going to make, I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 copies of that. Actually, and I have 1, so I need to make 4 more. If you're going to make a card out of it, make 1 more copy and set it aside because you'll use it to make the card base itself. So what I need here are 4 more of these. And I'm just going to go ahead and do on my keyboard. This is a PC. I'm going to Control D and it's going to give me a copy. So I'm going to do that. I have 2. I need 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The next step to make your life easier is to click all of these, select all of them, right click and send to back. That way, when you match them up with these, it's going to be behind it, which will be important. So I'm going to take a circle and I'm going to move it in the vicinity of each one of these offsets. I don't need to get it perfect because there's no way I could anyway. And there's a better way to do that. So for each one of these, I'm going to select both the offset and the circle. I'm going to go up here and you see this little bullseye. I'm going to tell it to center. Does all the work for me. Bless this little heart. Yeah, I use that a lot. This one over here will center everything to the page. So it'll put it in the middle of the page, which I rarely use on occasion. Oh, and what I'm saying, I should have done something else. Hold on. When I have both of those selected and I centered them, I'm going to right click that and I'm going to say make a compound path. Okay, so now I'll show you what the difference is. I'm going to, let's see, make a compound path out of you. With this one, I'm going to click on this and I'm going to fill it because I want to show you something. Let's make it green. First of all, if it was in the front, hold on one second. I'm going to make it solid. If that shape was in the front, it would be covering up your offset or inset, really. I keep saying offset. I guess, I don't know. Internal offset. Yeah. Is that an inset? Anyhow, so that's why we sent them all to the back because it just makes life easier on you. If you center these, yeah, center, there it is. But you don't create a compound path. First of all, they won't be, once you click off of it, they won't be together anymore. But I'll show you what happens when I do that. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to say make a compound path. And look, it's green because it took the color of the background and put it inside of this. Now you can see with the red lines, this is your file. So we're going to do that again. Select both the circle and the internal offset, click center. Those are both selected right now. On a right click, make a compound path. And last one. Oops, better if you click on the box, make a compound path. Okay. Now, now we want to see if how this is going to work. And what I did, as you can see over here, is I filled them all with different colors. Oh, and the other thing I did is I turned off all the cut lines because that red really interferes with seeing what's going on. The one thing I did do with the white piece is I put an outline color on it because otherwise, I'll show you what happens if I, first of all, you want to fill it before you turn off the lines because I'll show you what happens. If I go up to this box over, you have two choices. You can go to this box up here on the upper left, right over here, and change the line color, or you can pop open this panel and change the line color. But in any case, if I set that to, and that hash mark, no, whoop, I have to have something selected. There we go. And that, oh, it disappears. Well, it's still there. You just can't see it. If I filled it, if I opened that panel and I said, oh, make that purple, then you would be able to see it again because that's coloring the inside of the design. So you want to do this in a particular order, which is I fill each of these with, and honestly, I think all I did was, let's see, this is my top one. So I'm going to make this one white. But when I do that, the only way I can see it is if I pull it off of the white background. You see, it's still there. It's just, so I'm going to put a line around that that's colored so I can see it. And then this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the topmost and the 5 is the bottom. So I'm going to go to 2. I'm going to come into the fill. And all I did for my sake is just use these nice little gradations. There's the word. And I just went from light to dark. So let's see. That works. I'm going to pick this one. And I'm going to make it that color. I'm going to pick this one and make it that color. Oh, I'm going to pick this one and make it that color. Ooh, that's dark. Where did I move myself? Who the heck knows what I did? And now I'm gonna, actually, if you want to know, if I click on this, oops, I'll make that color. If I click on advanced options, I can actually make that a deeper shade. Kind of turns to mud because I'm increasing the black. but gives me something that I can work with, because the point of this is to see, kind of give yourself an idea of what it would look like when you're done. Now I'm going to select all of those, and I'm going to open my little line panel, and I'm going to turn off the cut lines. Oops, I thought this, oh, except I didn't want to turn off the cut lines on that one. That's why we do the undo. If I hold down the shift key and click on that one, it'll deselect it. Now I can turn off the cut lines. Okay, now I can stack them on top of each other. However, I've got to move this one to the back, right click, send to back. Have that one set onto that. I'm going to right click, bring to front. I'm going to set it on top of that one. Right click, bring to front, set it on top of that one. Right click, bring to front, set it on top of that one. I'm going to select all of those, and now I'm going to hit that center to the page.
Nice.
It'll bring it all together, and I will. And that gives you an idea of, oops, I need to center them to themselves. There we go. There you go. And there's your design. And you did it. And you know, the pieces are all apart and everything else. So pretty straightforward, just take some time. And I gave you both a 1/4 inch and 1/3 inch increments because depending on the complexity and the thickness of the original design, will you might want to use different sets. Again, you can also eyeball it if that's what you want to do. There's no rules around this. It's just however you want to manage it. Does that all make some kind of sense? I hope.
It does, actually.
Good. Good. I'm going to get rid of all that because I have my pieces here. And how I cut these out, and I'm going to change my camera in just a minute, is I set it up and I used oh, you know what I didn't do? That's all right. I can fix that. Oh yeah, that's right. I deleted it. This is my saved circle, which I then decided to make I'll show you when I cut out this. I think when I cut out my card, I used this color for the very back because there were some holes in there. So because my card base is white and I didn't want white in the back, just a personal choice, but it doesn't matter. So this could either be a 5 or 6 layer card, depending on how you want to manage it. So the next thing I want to do is show you about actually like cutting them. What I did when I cut these for this class, because I didn't make, I mean, you can't, you know, like I said, with the other ones, I just put four of them on the mat, just duplicated them, spread them around the mat. Oh, and the other, here's another thing to remember. I just changed the size of this thing. That's going to be a problem because obviously that. So once you have these set, if you want to mess around with the size, you should put them all together and group them and then resize it. So every single piece gets resized the same. Okay, I'm gonna say, let's pretend these are all my layers. We're not gonna use that white one, didn't want it anyway. So I'm gonna center all of that. I'm going to group all of that. And then I can resize it. You see, it's about 5 inches. It's just a hair over 5 inches, you know, depending on what size I want it to cut as. Because if you try to, I mean, if you do it individually, you're going to have to, like, I could take this one and I could resize it down, probably not terribly well, but I can always figure out what the numbers are here and enter those numbers for this. It's pretty close, but not quite. But it's just easier if you remember that if you want to resize it, group all the shapes together, resize it, and then ungroup them. Okay, I want to talk about cutting. So I'm going to ungroup that. And I'm going to get off of this screen in a minute. Obviously, these are now too big to put 4 up on there. when they're 5 inches, they fit really nicely. So let's just pretend these are all 5 inches and they all fit that way. Because what I'm going to show you now is, hopefully I'm going to change my share to my, there we go. Here's my notes. This is how I set it up. So where's the top of my mat? Right there. So when I cut the first layers out, I cut this one and then that one and then that one and then that one. I put them all on there, sent it to cut. And one thing to remember with this is I talk about this all the time with paper. I mean, and when I say paper, this is cardstock. It is 85-pound cardstock. It's pretty heavy. This is really nice stuff. But with something as thin as this, if you try to pull that off of the mat, you're very likely to tear it. If you don't tear it, you will warp it. It'll start to curve the paper. So what you want to do is we cut that out. I'm going to flip this mat upside down and I'm going to curl the mat back and using spatula tool, or let's see, where is it? Here, my favorite. This is my favorite little spatula tool. Oops. Here is help the pieces come off. Whoops, I'll just do it up here. Obviously there's no pieces, I haven't cut this. But that way, as you roll it this back, your paper is staying flat. Okay, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the other thing you see in that on the instructions is when I did that design that I made for the sample, these were originally not attached, these little pieces. Hold on one second, stay there, my friend. Here, come over here. Now, what I did, because I'm crazy, is I attached each of these to there. And how I did that is I drew a small piece between the little separate piece that you can see in the photograph on your, which you can't see on mine because it's faded. I need to replace my ink. And I put a piece that connected both parts and I welded it. But then I had to go in here and kind of play around with it. The other thing you can do is if like with this piece here, you notice something's missing here. Well, the nature of the design was that this didn't connect. I have them someplace in a little container, very safe. So when I glued them together to make the cards, when I put down this layer, I put down this part, and then I put down the other part separately, and then I could add this on top of it. So sometimes you will get a small piece that's separate. If you get a lot of them, then you might want to either spend a lot of time reconnecting everything like I did with this, or, just not use that width of a inset. So, oops, wrong part. You go over there. Okay. Oh, yeah. And this one, it didn't matter so much because this is quite symmetrical. This appears symmetrical, but it actually has a few differences in it. So I found that if I didn't, especially after I finagled with this part, if I didn't mark on the pieces where they belonged, they got kind of messed up. I had to sit there and sort of figure it out. So I have all of these, whoops, a lot of paper. There we go, here, buddy. I have all these pieces. And rather than having to go, okay, how does that fit onto that one? And before I took it off the mat, they were all pointed straight up. I had those 4 things on the mat. This is top, I peel that back and make a little mark on the back of this, on the back of these. So I know that I can look on the back of them and line them up. Oops, see, because that one's flipped over. Line them up exactly as they're supposed to go. It's just to help when you put it together. Of course, do as I say, not as I do, because I didn't do it with these. But I don't think it mattered as much because it's pretty symmetrical, came out pretty evenly, and I didn't mess with it or anything. So we're good. So the question is, how do you put this together? Well, I decided for this one, let's see, where are you, bad boy? That I was going to use one of my colors in the back. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I find it easier to work from the back to the front. So this one's going to be pretty easy. Sorry, I just get used to this camera. This one's going to be pretty easy. I have a tape gun. You can use any sort of paper safe glue. Aleene's tacky glue is good. This is a sort of a specialized glue that I get to make my things because it dries a little faster. But for something like this, I'm going to use tape. I'm not going to use glue on this because it's just gooey and you have to worry about it a little bit too much. So just remember, now in this case, I have cardstock that is textured on one side and smooth on the other, which makes it easy to know which side is up. But again, imagine there's little marks on the backs of each of these things. This one doesn't matter much because that is a plain circle. And I'm going to just put glue on here or put tape on here. And this one, oops. And if you do that, you just peel it off. This layer I'm going to put flat onto the one below it. Well, give me a second and I'll show you putting them on with foam tape. If you're familiar with that, it gives you some dimension. It just also takes a while to put together. We'll be doing all of this in class and I'll go over this again. So don't worry too much about it. But I figured one of the ways, before I stick that on there, that you can make sure the paper is aligned with the one behind it is to set it on edge. And then I've got the edges on either side. I've got the edge on the table. And so I know that's matched up. And I press it on there. And there it is. The next layer, let's see, that's this one. And stuck over it. Now I got to, because I don't have the lines on here, I got to wiggle it around until I find a spot where it belongs. And there it is. Okay. So I have a choice here. I can do this one flat. I could do them all flat if I wanted to. But in the case of this one, I want to go ahead and I want to raise that up a little bit off. It has a really neat look to it. So I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to get out my, this is a roll of foam tape. I'm going to take a really crummy pair of scissors that I have I had to clean them off. Here's a hint about this stuff. I don't have a pair of Teflon scissors because I haven't needed them in the past. I don't use this a lot, but I will probably get some. This will gum up your scissors. So don't use your decent cutting scissors on that. And it does come off with like Goo Gone or something like that, probably alcohol. But you can also buy these in pieces already cut, which I have a sheet of someplace in my home that I cannot tell you where it is. So story of my life. So what I'm going to use is this because that's what I found. So I'm just going to cut off a piece of it here. And then I'm going to cut off, well, like, for example, in this case, I can put this piece right in here. It's a nice big spot. I want to put enough in here so that it's supported, but not so much as that I lose my marbles having to take it all off because it's sticky on the one side, but now I'm going to have to come in here on all of these and peel the paper off. Oops. There we go. And I do this a little bit around the edge. I just want to make sure it's fairly well supported. Well, here's I don't know if you can see this. This is one of those cuts. Let's see. Yeah, can you see those? Where they cut, but it was essentially just a line. There was no need to leave that. I had left that in there, that little tiny piece that I took out when we went through that. So I'm going to just keep doing this. And a couple more. I want to take all night. You can get as fussy with this as you want to. If you have any questions as I go along about anything, I can talk and do this at the same time. Like mad skills. Okay. In there. I'm just gonna, oh, it's gonna drive me nuts if I don't do this right. Oh, and if you do that, cut that off. Hey, get off of there. I don't know if normally I would go ahead and put more in here, but for tonight, I'm not going to. I'm going to cut one more piece for the top. That on there. That's a little close to the edge. The nice thing about this foam tape is it's flexible, so I can just pull it down if I've got it close to the edge. Stick it all on there, and now I get to pick off all the little pieces. It's not bad when they're big like this, but when you start getting teeny tiny ones in these little cracks, that'll make you crazy. Well, I mean, as I tell my family, don't try to drive me crazy. It's a short trip. You know? All right, paper off. You can also use a pair of tweezers on this stuff. At the moment, I have some fingernails. Okay, so I know that's off of there. Sometimes it can be hard to see just by looking at it if you've got the tape off of it. So if you touch it, you'll find out fast. Okay, well, so the tricky part about this is you've got to get this lined up. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, one thing you can do, which I get in a hurry, is to not take all the tape off of the top tape so they're not all sticky. Matter of fact, you could just leave like one, line it up, put it down, and then very gently just kind of pull the rest of it, pull this back and take the paper off the tape. But I like to live dangerously, so I'm going to eyeball this. It's not bad. A little off. Yeah, I can see. You can see on that top edge, it's a little bit off. I have it down too far. If anybody says anything about it, I'll take my card back. So just for me, so I'm going to tape this part down just for time wise, and you can put as many layers in there as you want. Personal preference again. Oops, and you see I covered that up, so pull that back. It gets to the point where the tape is a little awkward to use. Quite frankly, I know you guys can see it on there. It's a little actually dark in my room because darn if the sun didn't go down. Oh, come on, you bugger. That's what happens when you get in a hurry. Don't get in a hurry. Take your time. Enjoy yourself. This is where Linda picks up the glue. Now, I have these handy dandy little needlepoint glue bottles that I get off of Amazon for very little money. And I can dot this. And I don't think you can see, you can't see, but there's actually dots of glue on there now. Because they're, let's see. Turn down the light. Oops, that's my thumb. Sorry. Oh, there they are. You see the dots of glue? That came out of my glue bottle. So I'm just going to dot around so everything gets stuck in place. Because some people have better fine motor skills than me. It's interesting because, you know, I make all these paper flowers and things and people go, oh my God, that's so tedious. And I'm like, you want to know something? It's really not, because I'm making plants and flowers, there's a lot of flexibility in that because plants and flowers are not perfectly symmetrical. This is the kind of thing that I get a little kooky about because I want it to be, you know, all lined up and whatever, but I sometimes lack the patience. Oh, let's not stick our fingers in the glue, Linda. Good idea. Let's see. Okay. Now, the thing about this is, as long as I'm not really off with that glue, it gives me a little bit of wiggle room. So I'll pull it up there. And I'm gonna set it down there. Oops, and I'm off. So I can move it around. That is the nice thing about using glue. But you saw what tiny bits of glue that I used. You don't want to. Right there yet? That looks pretty good. Coming along. In order to not, we'll practice this when we get into the makerspace in a couple of weeks. But obviously something this thin, you're not going to try to use those foam dots, and you definitely want to glue that down. Whether or not you want to use foam dots on this, that's up to you. They would have to be thin pieces, but some people like to do that, and that's great. But that's what we wind up with. So now I can, two more things I want to show you real quick. Is a card base. And the way I did this card base, I'm gonna change, here it is right here. I'm gonna go back to Silhouette Studio for a second. Yep. Is I took a circle, I duplicated it. You guys are seeing my screen, right, with the Silhouette Studio?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I kind of placed them. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I zoom in and out a lot when I'm working on things so I can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to put them really close together, but I don't want them touching because I need that to be a whole circle. And then I'm going to select both of them and I'm going to line them up to make sure they're perfectly in line with one another. And that I can do up here. See, this is going to center them to each other, which is not what I want. This is going to align in the middle. And if you watch, one or both of them might move a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, I had it pretty good. I'm getting better at this. I'll show you how it works though. I moved that one way down there.
Yeah, I couldn't even see that move.
Yeah, yes, because I'm so good. There you go. You see how that worked. Now I'm going to scoot this one over a little bit. I'm using the arrow key. If I hold down shift, it moves big. If I just hit the arrow key, it moves little. It's close enough. Like I said, I need that whole circle, so I don't want it to overlap. But what I'm then going to do is take a little rectangle, whatever size I want to make it. It's all up to me. I'm going to select all of those things again, and I'm going to center it again to make sure that that rectangle's in the middle. That moved a little bit. Now I have all these selected. I'm going to weld it. There's a in the quick access toolbar, it's this circle and a rectangle. And now I have one piece. And that's what you saw.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what when you get that extra circle, or actually what I did for this card, and I'll show you, let me make sure that's the case. Yes, is when I had that, I said, keep aside an extra circle for the base. I think I got rid of it over here. Oh no, there it is I took this, I'm going to copy that. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to paste it. I actually did an offset on this. We go back.
Oh, this is getting more fancy than I've ever done.
Well, here's the thing. I did a regular offset so that it goes on the outside, so that my card is slightly bigger than my design.
Right.
So that way I don't have to worry about lining it up so much. Plus it adds another layer of dimension, and you can make that, offset as much as you want. You can, eyeball it again, take that aside. Now that's what I made my card base from, 2 circles and a rectangle, but I made it a little bit bigger. And I'm going to show you one more thing. I'm going to show you the envelope. Oops. Let me open up a file. Open, reset. Yeah. And the way I made that envelope, and which I'll show you in real life in a minute, is I made a square. I decided like if my card is, let's say it's 4.5 inches. It's a circle that's 4.5 inches. So my envelope needs to be a little bit bigger than that to fit all of that in there. When it's thick and to it, if I made it 4 inches, it would be right on the edge. So that won't work. So for my 4.5 inch circle, I'm going to make a 5-inch envelope. I drew a square. I then, because I can't turn these things with any accuracy on my own, I go to the transform panel and click on this little rotate circle. And then I can tell it either where the point of rotation is, or by saying 45 or less than 45 or whatever, I can turn it, because originally this was like that, but I wanted it set at a 45-degree angle. So that's what I told it to do. So I know this, in this case, it's 5 inches. So I then drew a circle that is also 5 inches. Again, it's draw an ellipse, hold down the shift key, draw the circle. Don't worry too much about the size, because you're going to go back up here and I'm going to say, I need that to be a 5-inch circle. I type 5, I hit tab, I hit enter. It's now a 5-inch circle. Then what I'm going to do is, hold on one second. I made 4 of them. Oops. I then lined it up sort of like the same way I did my cards. And then I rotated one of them at 45 degrees, and I rotated the other one at negative 45 degrees. I put all those shapes together. I select them all. I center it. And you see there's going to be a card here in half a second. Now, the other thing I did is when I made an envelope before, I put first time I did it, I didn't. I put little circles over here because I used a string to tie it together. It looked really cute. Again, I'm going to draw a little, an ellipse, hold down the shift key. I eyeballed it. I'm like, that looks good. I'm going to put this here. And actually, if you wanted, if you can eyeball it, or you can, I'm going to duplicate that. You can, let's take all this away from here for a second. Before you do all this other mess, if we're going to, whoops, I don't want to do that. I'm going to set this all up. Like, oops, that didn't work. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm going to do that. I'm going to pull this dot over here. I'm going to pull that dot over there until it's about
I
the
see.
same.
Yeah.
Yep. And now I can select all of those, and I can go back to that align middle. So these will be on the same. Now they may be a little bit further from the edge one than the other. I'd probably sit there and fiddle with it for a little bit. But then I'm going to take that and I'm going to group it so they stay together. I'm going to go back and I'm going to take my square. I think this is the, nope. I'm going to center all this stuff again. What time is it? Okay. Oh, we're fine. That's right. I keep getting in there. Trying to center all of that. They're all selected. Actually, I'm going to ungroup that because I need them all selected. It will not weld things that are grouped. So you need to ungroup anything that you've got. And there's something grouped in here. Oh, I know the circles are grouped to each other. So I'm going to, you can just keep hitting ungroup until everything that you've selected is ungrouped. And now I'm going to weld it. And oh yeah, it kept, don't ask me why. Oh, I know why. Oh, well, that's interesting. That did not work. Let's try this. Oh, I know why, because I don't want to weld those. I'm such a knucklehead. Sometimes I tell you. Linda makes mistakes too. What I want to do with this is not weld it. I want to subtract it. So I'm going to open on the right, the modify panel, which has that same sort of thing. And I'm going to say subtract, and that'll take the holes out. There we go. I got moving too fast. Because the circles all overlapped, I didn't actually need the square, but that's how I originally had designed it. And I guess you could probably not have to worry about that. But anyway, so let's go back here to start a new share. I'm gonna go here. So now I have my card blank. Let's pretend this is all glued together. Boop. And this is a bone folder, which is not bone, it's plastic. They used to be bone, apparently. And I can match those edges up, little crease in there, flatten that out. You can use anything to do that with, but there's my card. So I would then take this and let's picture that all glued together and stick that on the front of that with tape, put tape on the back of it, put it on however you want it. The other thing I usually do is on the inside end is cut circles that will fit, but are not the same size, but will fit inside of it. And what we're going to do, I'm going to show you is how to use at the class in 2 weeks, I'm going to show you how to use the foil quill pen, which is the last class I taught. So you can foil quill something on there. You can use a sketch pen and write happy birthday. I don't know about you, but my handwriting is not what it ever once was. So, but that's an easy way to make a really nice card. And then for the envelope, where's my envelope? I'm going to take my ruler. I sure the ruler? No. Oh, and I'm gonna, I have these shaping tools. I use them when I make flowers and things like that, but they also are great for this, for scoring. Because I'm going to line that up so it meets the edge of the card here. Oops, edge of the card there. And I'm going to score that. And do it again. Line it all up. And score it. Just go around and do each one. And one more. And what that does is make this easier to fold up. So now it's scored and I can get some nice crisp folds on that. If you don't want to tie it, you don't need these holes. And you could, now these don't meet. So, right there, but let's say that I was making a regular envelope. Once I glue all this, I could glue this part to here. And then I'd have an envelope and then I could put my card inside and glue that down. I would not mail this like this, just as an aside is I have mailed them. And what I did is I put it in another envelope and mailed it because because this is so stiff by the time you get all these layers on here, actually gets shipped as a package. Don't ask it. Former life doing a lot of mailings, anything that can't be bent is considered a package rather than like first class mail. So, but the other thing you can do if you're just giving it as a gift is you put it in there or that you're giving it to somebody in person and run a string through there and tie that and then ta-da, you have an envelope. And we can do those next in the next class too. So, was there anything else I wanted to tell you? No, I don't think so. That there are a lot of different places you can get, like I said, get these. I'm going to go back into I follow a company called Creative Fabrica. Huh, say that 10 times fast. And today they give away free files every day. Now this is an SVG file, and which means, see, this is what happens if you try to open it in the basic, is it won't open. Jesse and I have talked about getting, I'm going to get Silhouette, they'll probably donate it to the library, get the, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to change the edition that I'm working with to view in business edition. You'll see some things added on here. And now I can open on SVG. Open recent, where are you? And this all came, it was all grouped together when I first got it. You say, what the heck am I going to do with that? Well, I ungrouped it. Oh, yeah. I don't use that one for that. It's so weird. You get in such habits. If you right click, there's a lot of options and you can ungroup in there. So now I've got body parts. Oh, let's see. This one. I'm gonna is that? Or say that's the same color. I'm gonna select all that and I'm gonna group that. And now I can cut it out on separate pieces of paper, black, light pink, dark pink, and sort of a, I don't know, I guess that's even dark pink, and put that together. What I was saying earlier is that I'm gonna get the designer, excuse me, the business edition for the library to have because what I can do now is not that I've opened this SVG is I can save it onto my hard drive, or I could save it in the library, but I save all my documents onto my hard drive or a external hard drive. And I can say, I'm going to change the name of it to Layered Flamingo 2. And and that's going to, if I realize I didn't open the SVG, I opened the studio file. But if I opened the SVG, it would have come in grouped, ungroup it, and I can then save it as a studio file. And then I could work with it in the basic edition. Now that I have it all, let's see, standard edition. And these are still parts and everything, but now it's in the Silhouette software in that, and that's a proprietary software. So you, the only place you can buy them is in the Silhouette Design Store. So, you know, depending on whether you're looking for something to make real quickly, or you're looking for something that you want to design something yourself, there's lots of options for that. Now, obviously with these pieces, they all, you cut them out of paper or vinyl or whatever it is you want to use. And you put them back together. If you're doing vinyl, here's a little trick. You say this is the way I want it to be. I can put a thing there. Let's see, boop. I'm going to fill that just because it's easier. I'm going to duplicate it. And thing there. So for each layer that I cut, I'm going to leave these two things in the same spot. And that way, when I layer the vinyl on top of one piece on top of another, all I got to do is match these up, and then it'll put the vinyl down where I want it. I don't find that so necessary with the paper, because paper, you can sort of wiggle it around and figure out where it goes. Okay.
That's cool.
All right. Yeah, so there's, and all of that stuff, there's a lot of resources on that resource sheet, including Creative Fabrica, Pixabay. There's design bundles, font bundles. A lot of those have freebies and fonts and designs and different things. So Yeah,